What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, former unified welterweight world champion superstar boxer Keith one-time Thurman, 29 wins, 1 loss, no draws, 22 big wins by way of knockout, 33 years of age, 5'7" with a 69-inch arm reach. He will be making his ring return after a 2-year hiatus after suffering the only defeat of his career to legendary 8-division world champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer Manny Pacquiao, July of 2019. Keith Thurman will be making a ring return February 5th in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Mandalay Bay Arena against former WBA junior welterweight regular champion Mexican star boxer Mario Barrios. So with that said, over a 2-year and a 2.5-year layoff for Keith Thurman. Now, Keith Thurman, he stated that he'll definitely be making a mark in the sport of boxing once again. This is the second career for Keith Thurman. Okay, so he's a testament to legendary retired Hall of Famer, iconic superstar boxer Floyd Money Mayweather Jr., who retired 50-0, pound for pound king, and legendarily, iconically, he had 2 careers. Floyd Mayweather. He had the pretty boy Floyd Mayweather era. Then he had the Money Mayweather era. Okay, and so Keith Thurman is likening himself and his comeback to that of Floyd Mayweather. Now, Floyd Mayweather, the difference is he took a hiatus, but Floyd Mayweather didn't come off of a loss. Keith Thurman's coming off of a loss, and this is not the first time Keith Thurman has had a hiatus. Keith Thurman, after unifying the belts back in 2017 against 2-division world champion Puerto Rican superstar boxer Danny Swift Garcia, Keith Thurman, he went on a 2-year hiatus, and he came back in 2019 when Keith Thurman fought against Josito Lopez in January of 2019. Then he fought Manny Pacquiao in July of 2019. But from 2017, his unification bout in March of 2017 against Danny Garcia, he went on a 2-year hiatus and cited injuries. Then he came back. He had the 2 fights against Josito Lopez. Manny Pacquiao had a loss, went on another 2-year hiatus. So with that said, Keith Thurman has been asked about big fights. Now, since Keith Thurman has been out, another guy has been making a mark and making a name for himself in the welterweight division, not just the champions, and that being undefeated rising welterweight superstar title contender Jaron Boots Ennis. The Phenom, as I refer to him as. 28 wins, no loss and no draws, 26 wins by way of knockout, 24 years of age, 5'10" with a 74-inch arm reach. We last saw him in the ring October of this year when he took on Thomas Delorme and got a first-round knockout victory. So with that said, Jaron Ennis has placed himself in all of the major sanction belt rankings, at least top 3, okay? So he's definitely making a name for himself and making a mark for himself in the sport of boxing. And the fans, the media, they want to see Jaron Ennis now in with the absolute best, okay? So with that said, obviously a name, Keith Thurman, came up. Jaron Ennis would love to face off against Keith one-time Thurman. And Keith Thurman initially, when asked about Jaron Ennis, Keith Thurman, he stated he didn't know who Jaron Ennis was, okay? He stated that he was unfamiliar with Jaron Boots Ennis. Well, now, in a more recent interview to promote his upcoming fight with Mario Barrios, in which Keith Thurman, he stated that he's the dark horse on a Showtime Sean Porter, 2-time welterweight world champion superstar boxers podcast, the Porterweight podcast. He said he's the dark horse in the entire welterweight race, but he definitely have the opportunity, to work his way, to be the horse to work his way back in the front, and be the face of the welterweight division. Okay. And he was on a podcast now with Brian Custer, in which he was asked about Jaron Boots Ennis. And Brian Custer, he didn't cut any corners. Brian Custer could clearly let it be known and asked him, that Jaron Boots Ennis is a major player that everybody's acknowledging and recognizing. And do you acknowledge and recognize Jaron Boots Ennis at this time? Now, Jaron Ennis, again, in all of the major sanction belts, he's ranked very high. Okay, you have in the Ring Magazine rankings, Jaron Ennis ranks number 4, only behind the world champions. Okay, he's only behind Terence Crawford at 1, Errol Spence at 2, and your Dana Sugas at 3. Okay, Jaron Ennis is at number 4. Okay, so then you go to the WBO rankings. Jaron Ennis is number 2, only behind undefeated Mexican superstar title contender Virgil Ortiz Jr. Okay, so with that said, he's number 2 in the WBO rankings. Then you look at the IBF rankings. Jaron Boots Ennis is number 3 in the IBF rankings, and he's actually really number 1 in the IBF rankings because you have Better Beef, who was ranked number 1 in the rankings, but he lost to Cody Crowley, and number 2 was Sean Porter, and he recently retired. So Jaron Ennis by default is going to move up to number 1 in the IBF rankings, and is going to be the mandatory for Errol Spence Jr. And then you have the WBC rankings, and Jaron Boots Ennis is number 3 in the WBC ranking system, okay? Behind Avanesian and Virgil Ortiz Jr. Avanesian is a fight that Jaron Ennis is looking to possibly secure, okay? And then you look at the WBA rankings, okay? Jaron Boots Ennis is number 3 in the WBA rankings, okay? Then you look at, so there you have it. He's number 3 in the WBA. He's top 3 in all of the major sanction belts. If he's not one, okay? So with that said, Keith Thurman, he refers back to when asked about Jaron Ennis, he says, now I'm going to be honest, okay? He says, people love to hear me talk because I'm honest. So he stated that I'm going to be honest. And he says that I've been focusing on the world titles, okay? Jaron Ennis is a generation behind us, unfortunately. And if Floyd Mayweather didn't fight us, now initially he states he's not going to do what Floyd Mayweather did to him and not give him the opportunity. Well, he was looking to seek out a fight with Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. This is ironic because he was seeking out a fight with Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, and Floyd Mayweather, he told Keith Thurman if Keith Thurman fought and beat either Sean Porter or Errol Spence Jr., that he would give Keith Thurman an opportunity, and he highlighted Errol Spence Jr. So Floyd Mayweather told him, if you fight and beat, Errol Spence Jr., then I'll give you the opportunity. Keith Thurman, he said he felt like he was being slighted and he was being trapped, so he didn't take the opportunity. Okay, but Keith Thurman, those guys, Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, they were a generation ahead of Keith Thurman. But Keith Thurman ended up fighting Manny Pacquiao anyway. But nonetheless, he states that he's not going to avoid Jaron Ennis like Floyd Mayweather avoided him. But then in the same breath, he states that Jaron Ennis is a generation behind us, so why should we, referring to himself, Errol Spence, and Terence Crawford, because those are other fights. The fans are calling for, since Terence Crawford don't have a fight in the foreseeable future, a fight with Jaron Boots Ennis. Fans want to see Jaron Ennis is making himself the mandatory for Errol Spence. Well, the fans want to see Jaron Ennis versus Errol Spence Jr. Keith Thurman doesn't have a belt, working his way back into that position. Well, the fans want to see Jaron Ennis and Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman is not ranked top 3 in none of these major sanction belts. Jaron Ennis is ranked ahead of Keith Thurman. What Keith Thurman has on Jaron Ennis is a name, okay? And history, but he does not have a belt currently as it stands, okay? And so with that said, he states that, Jaron Ennis is a generation behind him, so he doesn't see why today's fighters, meaning Errol Spence himself and Terence Crawford, should have to fight Jaron Boots Ennis. Well, because yourself, Errol Spence, and Terence Crawford was looking to fight Floyd Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao, and Manny Pacquiao, he obliged. He gave you the opportunity. He was actually going to give Errol Spence the opportunity as well, August 21st, but Errol Spence, he suffered a broken detached retina and had to be pulled out of the fight for their scheduled August 21st showdown in Las Vegas, Nevada at the T-Mobile Arena. So Manny Pacquiao is a generation or 2 ahead of Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, and Terence Crawford, yet he was willing to oblige and give them the opportunity. That's why you should give Jaron Boots Ennis the opportunity, okay? And so Keith Thurman, he cleans it up by saying, well, once he collects the belts, he's more than willing to give Boots Ennis the opportunity. No, he's not, because Keith Thurman, if he was to beat Terence Crawford and he was to beat Errol Spence, Keith Thurman is not going to defend his titles against Jaron Boots Ennis, okay? So with that said, it's unfortunate because Keith Thurman is going to try to use his namesake to put himself in position to get these opportunities, where Jaron Ennis has put himself in a position to get the opportunity by going through the ranking system. So he's deserving of his opportunity of a world title shot, okay? And now Jaron Ennis, he's seeking out a fight with Avanesian to, remove, this is somebody in the top 3 in the ranking system. So Jaron Ennis is looking to fight him or Cody Crowley. So it's interesting to see how this plays out moving forward, because, Avanesian is, he's a 28 wins, 3 losses, no draw, 1 draw, in his career. He's a very good fighter. That's a fight that Jaron Ennis is seeking out, or a fight with Cody Crowley. So Jaron Ennis, he stated that he's going to have an announcement coming up very, very soon. And, he hopes to get back in the ring. With that said, stylistically, Keith Thurman understands that Jaron Ennis is a complete style matchup nightmare for Keith Thurman. Jaron Ennis is 3 to 4 inches, nearly 4 inches taller than Keith Thurman. He has a 4 or 5 inch arm reach advantage over Keith Thurman. He's quicker than Keith Thurman. He's bigger and stronger than Keith Thurman. He's very versatile. He has the ability to switch from southpaw and orthodox very fluidly. And Keith Thurman has shown glaring weaknesses. Jaron Ennis has a lot of power. Keith Thurman has shown that he has a glaring weakness when you go to his body. So that he can spell, Jaron Ennis can spell disaster for Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman is well understanding of that. That's the reason why Keith Thurman doesn't want to take this opportunity. Now, I understand that Keith Thurman is a generation ahead of Jaron Boots Ennis, for sure. Just like Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao were a generation ahead of Keith Thurman. But that didn't stop Keith Thurman from getting his opportunity. And he could have gotten an opportunity should he beat somebody in his generation to get the biggest fight of his career against Floyd Mayweather. And he got the fight with Manny Pacquiao and he came up short. So let's see how this unfolds, because Jaron Ennis is putting himself in a position to be the mandatory. Now, there's talks that Keith Thurman could possibly face Terence Crawford in July. So if Keith Thurman faces Terence Crawford in July, well, maybe we're not even talking about Keith Thurman and Jaron Ennis unless Keith Thurman wants to stay active, because I favor Terence Crawford to win that fight in July. But who knows? So let's see how this unfolds. But let's say Keith Thurman was to win against Terence Crawford. Well, then Jaron Ennis will be come and pushing to make himself the mandatory for Keith Thurman's title. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Oh, one more thing. Errol Spence Jr. has no interest in fighting Keith Thurman at all. Errol Spence Jr. stated that if it comes down to becoming undisputed and having to go through Keith Thurman, he would just vacate the belts and move up to junior welterweight, because he has no interest in facing off against Keith Thurman. So now, if Errol Spence beats Yordenis Ugas, as I expect and most people expect to happen in April in a unification bout for Ugas' WBA and Errol Spence's IBF and WBC titles, and Errol Spence is unable to secure a fight with Terence Crawford, as he will be seeking out, and let's say Keith Thurman beat Terence Crawford in July, well, Errol Spence, it's a 50-50 chance that Errol Spence don't even take the fight with Keith Thurman. He vacates the belt. Well, that means that you will have to face Jaron Ennis anyway, because Jaron Ennis will be in line and in position to pick up one of them belts. And if you want to become undisputed and create history, then you're going to have to go through Jaron Ennis anyway. So Jaron Ennis is in a great position to push for one of these guys to give him the opportunity. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Raw. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
This is Amanda, the Real Deal Serrano, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.